The day has finally arrived. We're flying to Hong Kong. I am just so excited. We spent a really long time planning because we wanted to make sure that our trip incorporates all the traditional Hong Kong cafes, dim sum, as well as Michelin guides, Michelin star restaurants, top bars, all the delicious cafes, all the aesthetic cafes, not to mention all the beautiful locations where I can take photos of the Hong Kong skyline. Hong Kong is actually the first leg of our trip, so the plan is to spend a few days in Hong Kong before we fly out to China, and the plan is to go to Guangzhou, Yangshuo and Shenzhen and then return back to Hong Kong. So I'm going to post several videos from our trip, each for different cities, one for Guangzhou, one for Yangshuo, one for Shenzhen, and there's going to be actually 2 videos for Hong Kong. So this one is going to be for the first part of our trip, and there's going to be a second video for our return to Hong Kong before we fly out back to Vancouver. And I gotta say, as much as we planned our trip to Hong Kong, there were still some things that took us by surprise. One of them was the cab situation. If you're like us and planning on taking a cab from the airport, you should be aware that they only take cash. But when we were taking a cab in the city, most of them took cash and a few also offered octopus payments. Some also offered to accept Alipay, but only the Hong Kong version. And because of that, it was a little bit unpredictable for us how much money we need to have on hand every time we went out in Hong Kong, because we just didn't know what forms of payment would be accepted by cabs.
Okay, Tony, what are you most excited to do when we arrive in Hong Kong?
On the other hand, traffic wasn't as bad as we expected, and before we knew it, we were arriving in our neighborhood, Yau Ma Tei, to stay at our hotel, Eaton. It was around 7 p.m. by then, and I didn't want to waste the night, so we quickly changed and headed out into the city. First order of business was, of course, getting a coffee. There weren't too many options to pick from because I wanted a place that had both coffee and a pastry, and most places had one or the other. We promptly got lost, of course, but I didn't mind too much because we came across this Labubu store that was selling clothes for Labubus. I do regret not buying anything there though. We did eventually find our cafe, but that's also where we discovered that WeChat and Alipay that we downloaded are only for China and do not work in Hong Kong. We did have enough cash to get by for the rest of the night, so this was going to be a problem for tomorrow. And all of my financial troubles were forgotten as soon as I saw Lang Fang. It is basically a Hong Kong version of a cosmetics store and a pharmacy. They had most of the Western brands, however, at significantly lower prices. They also had a lot of Korean skincare and Korean products, however, the prices for those were pretty on par with what we're used to paying here. We hit up the ladies' market next, and it was kind of disappointing. Most of the places were selling either badly made knockoffs or really touristy things, and I wasn't really interested in either of those things. By that point, it was getting late and I was starting to get a little bit hungry, so we went to a place called Dim Dim Sum in Mongkok. This place is apparently pretty popular, and after we sat in, we saw that there was a big line forming outside. We ordered a lot of food because everything looked so good. A standout for me was the eggplant dish, and the complete disappointment were the ribs because they had no flavor whatsoever. After the ladies' market disappointment, we decided to hit up the Fai Yuan street market. But most of them were already closed or closing down, so we decided to call it a night and return to our hotel and go to bed.
Day 2 in Hong Kong.
Day 2 blessed us with good weather and no rain, and it's a good thing because I was planning on taking a lot of photos. We decided to have breakfast at the Australian Dairy Company, which we had to leave and come back to because, surprise, surprise, they only take cash. This is one of the oldest restaurants in Hong Kong, and it is said that they're known for their rude but very expedient service. No one was rude to us, but the service was indeed very fast. We needed to head to Harbour City Mall next, so we hopped on the metro because it's very easy and an affordable way to get around Hong Kong. I wanted to get a photo with the harbour in the background, so we headed to Harbour City Mall entrance first. This photo spot is very pretty, but it is right next to the entrance into the mall, so it takes some bravery. Next, we headed inside the mall to Cupping Room Coffee. Yes, to grab some coffee and cool down, but also because they have an incredible view. After sitting for a bit at a cafe, enjoying our coffee, and of course taking a bunch of photos, we headed back outside to go to the Hong Kong Cultural Center to take some photos of the architecture. The plan was to walk about 10 minutes to K11 Art Mall, but the heat was getting to us. So naturally we had to get some bubble tea.
First bubble tea in Hong Kong. I don't love mine. Do you like your bubble tea?
It's alright.
I actually really like this one because this is made with yumberry, which was a little bit sour, the berry, Chinese bayberry. It's a little bit sour but very yummy. Highly recommend. We bought this thing in hopes that it will save us from heat.
Spoiler alert, it did nothing. Anyway, after our little side quest for bubble tea, we were finally at the K11 Art Mall.
Malls in Hong Kong just hit different. This one is K11 Museum and it is just absolutely ginormous and there's so many stunning details here to see.
And make sure you don't leave the mall before going to the 6th floor observation deck. Because if you want to get those cool photos of the Hong Kong skyline without fighting the crowds, this is the place to be. And even though it was pretty windy at the observation deck, it was still so hot, so I had to get another bubble tea. This was a mix of fruit and tea and it was very refreshing.
This is our lunch. Okay, Tony, unveil it. Wow. Okay, so this is clay rice pot.
Clay pot rice.
Clay pot rice with meat and egg and green garbage. Yeah.
After an excellent lunch at the food court, we headed to the Avenue of Stars. There is a suggested route that you can follow and a direction, which we of course didn't realize existed until after, but we just roamed around and looked up names of the stars that we knew, and it was lots of fun. There were lots of people out and about taking photos of the skyline, but I still think the view from the observation deck is better. It was so hot outside, so we popped into another mall and just had to get another bubble tea. This one was a matcha latte with matcha cubes and it was very delicious. And for dinner, we decided to head to Hinki. I know this oyster pancake may not look very appetizing, but it was incredible. Razor clams, on the other hand, were too chewy. And of course, we had to get the specialty, the clay pot rice, which was absolutely incredible. And this is how we wrapped our day 2 in Hong Kong. We headed back to our hotel and passed out after so much walking and heat. For our day 3, we got up bright and early, had some breakfast pastries from the nearby Chinese bakery, which were so cheap, so fresh, and so delicious, and headed for the Star Ferry terminal. Star Ferry is a historic passenger ferry that crosses the Victoria Harbour between Kowloon and Hong Kong Island. We lucked out with another beautiful sunshiny day in Hong Kong, so our views were absolutely incredible. Both sides of the ferry had beautiful views, but if you're crossing from Kowloon, I personally really liked the left side. Even though I was feeling a little bit seasick from the ferry, I needed coffee, so we went to the Sheung neighborhood to find a place. We ended up going to Halfway Coffee because of their super cute porcelain cups and gorgeous retro decor. On Red Note, the Chinese TikTok app, I scoped out this cool place called Sheung Hong Kong. Apparently this place has been around for a really long time and they sell essential oils. But the most interesting part is that they create blends of scents that smell like hotels. So if you like the smell of the lobby at Ritz-Carlton or any other hotel, you can pick up a scent there. I ended up really liking the scents of Grand Hyatt and Ritz-Carlton, so we picked up those. Overall, we really like the Sheung neighborhood. There are so many cool cafes, restaurants, and little stalls selling vintage things. I've been on a hunt for a vintage Cartier watch and I was curious if Hong Kong had any. For the right price, of course. I've seen many people recommend Burn Horology, so I stopped by there. Sadly, they didn't have what I wanted, but they had a great selection of Cartier and Rolex vintage watches. Next up, we of course had to stop by at Slowood. I saw that they had a great selection of incense and I had to check it out. Not gonna lie, it's insane. Any scent you can want, you will find there. Tony's one request for Hong Kong was to ride the central mid-level escalator, so we did just that. In case you're wondering, it's just escalators outside and they go really far. I don't know. He convinced me to do it because he said at the end of it there will be shopping.
What is this place?
It's the police married quarters. So it's where all the cops used to live with their families. We converted into shops and restaurants.
Yeah, there's like shops all the way up there, and I think restaurants on the main floor.
In fact, there were at least 6 floors of shops to check out, as well as little cafes and restaurants. If you do end up coming here, prepare to spend at least a couple hours here. There is just so much to look at and so many things you could shop for. From footwear to leatherwork to interesting clothes to traditional outfits and even Twemco clocks. You can even take painting classes or sculpture classes here. Also make sure you don't miss their rooftop deck because the views, as always, are incredible. Overall, it's a fun place to explore, just don't expect any bargains because a lot of it is artisanal work. After all that walking, we were pretty hungry, so we stopped by at the Vision Bakery to try their pistachio custard Danish.
How is it? Is it dense? Heavy? Use your words.
Not too heavy. Very buttery. It's like very good maceration.
Okay, give me.
I really wanted to see the sunset over the Hong Kong skyline, so we headed over to the peak. Even though it was pretty late in the day and almost evening time, it was still so hot out. There was no line at the ticket office, so we just had to stand outside for 15 torturous minutes to wait for the train to arrive.
For the best view when you're taking the peak tram, sit on the right hand side of the train, and that way you will see the city as you come up the mountain.
It was fairly easy to grab a spot to view the skyline, but it was still really hot and there were a lot of mosquitoes. I've seen many people recommend to stick around for the blue hour, which is the hour between the sunset and the complete darkness. But either of those photos were too saturated and edited, or I just didn't have the patience, but this is the best it got and I just wanted at that point to get out. I was pretty tired at that point, but we ended up going to the Dragonfly Bar at Tai Kwun. Tai Kwun is actually a former Central Police Station compound that has been revitalized into art exhibits and cool bars like this one. We didn't have to wait in line and had no trouble getting a table, so we were sat down pretty quickly after we arrived. The drinks were honestly fine, nothing special I would say. We were definitely here for the ambiance and the cool decor. I would add though that the cocktails were pretty expensive. I think each one ended up costing us 26 Canadian dollars. Even though the drinks were mediocre, I really like Tai Kwun in general and highly recommend you check it out and explore. We started our last day in Hong Kong pretty early by going to this pan-fried Shanghai dumpling place for breakfast. I know, Shanghai pan-fried dumplings in Hong Kong in 40+ degree weather, what were we thinking? But if you did your research on Hong Kong like we did, this is actually a Michelin star place. We again lucked out with a very small queue and didn't have to wait long to order our dumplings. We ended up getting 3 types, regular, spicy, and not pictured here, truffle ones. And oh my god, they were so good, we ended up getting a second portion of the spicy ones. But yes, eating hot pan-fried dumplings in 40+ degree heat made me sweat even more than I possibly thought I could. While we were eating dumplings, I discovered many people walking around with bakehouse bags, and to my absolute delight, I discovered that it was right around the corner. The line was pretty long, not going to lie, but it moved pretty quickly. I think we only waited 15-20 minutes max. Of course, we had to get the egg tarts and the little pandan donut to go. And though I was skeptical, I am convinced the hype is real. The egg tarts were so delicious, I loved them, and I regret not buying more. The pandan donut was meh though. Anyway, this wraps up our first part of Hong Kong trip, as today is the day we are traveling by train to Guangzhou. We are coming back to Hong Kong though, so stay tuned for part 2 of our Hong Kong trip.